Imagine waking up tomorrow and everything you know, your city, your neighbors, your morning coffee routine, is just gone. No power, no government, no rules, just you, the ruins, and whatever is lurking out there in the dark. Terrifying idea for decades. And honestly, so have we. Hi, my name is Max, and this is Top Movies, the channel where we celebrate the greatest cinema ever put on screen first into the apocalypse. And trust me, it is a great day to do it. 20th place, The Road, 2009. Kicking off our list at number 20 is one of the bleakest, most emotionally devastating films you will ever sit through. And I mean that as the highest possible compliment. Directed by John Hillcoat, and based on Cormac McCarthy's Pulitzer Prize-winning novel, The Road follows a father and his young son as they trudge southward through a gray, ash-covered America that has been utterly destroyed by an unnamed catastrophe. Nobody knows what happened. Nobody explains it. The world simply ended, and these two people are what is left. Viggo Mortensen delivers a performance so raw and physically committed that it is genuinely difficult to watch at times. And Cody Smith-McPhee, as the boy, is nothing short of extraordinary. All wide eyes and quiet terror and fragile, stubborn hope. What makes The Road different from almost every other film on this list is what it refuses to give you. There are no rousing action sequences. There is no third-act hero moment. There is only survival, love, and the agonizing question of how long a good man can stay good in a world that has stopped rewarding goodness. Cormac McCarthy's central metaphor, a father carrying fire in the darkness for his child, is handled with enormous delicacy by Hillcoat. It is not a fun Friday night movie, I will say that up front, but it is unforgettable, and it earns every moment of its devastating final scene. 19th place, Children of Men, 2006. At number 19, we have a film that should be on every serious cinephile's watch list. And if it is not on yours yet, consider this your official intervention. Alfonso Cuarón's Children of Men is set in 2027, in a world where humanity has mysteriously become infertile. No children have been born in 18 years. Civilization is collapsing under the weight of its own despair. Cities are burning, refugees are herded into camps, and governments are crumbling one by one. Clive Owen stars as Theo, a disillusioned bureaucrat who is thrust into a desperate mission to escort the world's only pregnant woman to safety. The film is astonishing on a purely technical level. Its long, unbroken tracking shots, including a harrowing battle sequence filmed in a single continuous take that left audiences genuinely breathless, changed the way action and chaos are depicted on screen. Cinematographer Emmanuel Lubezki deserved every award in existence for this film, but beyond the craft, Children of Men works because it is profoundly human. It is about what hope looks like when hope seems genuinely irrational. It is about why we protect the future, even when the present is unbearable. Cuarón's direction never lets you look away, even when every instinct tells you to. One of the finest science fiction films of the 21st century, and it is not particularly close. 18th place, Waterworld, 1995. All right, number 18. Now look, I know what you were thinking. Waterworld? Really, Max? And yes, really. Because here is the thing about Waterworld. History has been far kinder to it than contemporary audiences and critics were back in 1995. Kevin Costner stars as the Mariner, a mutated loner navigating a future Earth where the polar ice caps have completely melted and dry land is nothing but a myth and a rumor. Directed by Kevin Reynolds, the film was famously the most expensive movie ever produced at the time of its release, a chaotic, waterlogged production that nearly sank everyone involved, including Costner's career. The tabloids had an absolute field day. They called it fish tar. They called it Kevin's Gate. And yet, the world building in Waterworld is genuinely imaginative. The floating owl community, the terrifying smokers led by a magnificently unhinged Dennis Hopper, and the sheer logistical audacity of staging massive action sequences entirely on open ocean water. All of it holds up considerably better than you probably remember. It is loud, it is gloriously ridiculous in places, and it is absolutely worth revisiting with fresh eyes. Is it a perfect film? No. Is it a deeply underrated one? Absolutely. Give it another chance. You might be surprised by how much fun you have. 17th place. I Am Legend, 2007. Coming in at number 17 is a film that does something genuinely difficult. It carries almost its entire running time on the shoulders of a single actor, and that actor is more than equal to the task. Francis Lawrence's I Am Legend stars Will Smith as Robert Neville, a virologist and military scientist who appears to be the last immune human survivor in New York City after a mutated virus has wiped out most of mankind and transformed the rest into nocturnal, light-sensitive creatures that hunt by sound and movement. The early sections of this film are nothing short of masterful. In empty Manhattan, overgrown with vegetation, eerily silent, hauntingly beautiful in its decay, creates an atmosphere of loneliness so complete it almost feels physically oppressive. Smith is remarkable, conveying grief, isolation, and the creeping fragility of a man holding himself together through sheer force of routine. His daily broadcasts into the silence, his conversations with mannequins, his relationship with his dog Sam, who is arguably the film's most important character and absolutely deserved every award ever given. The film's third act has been widely debated, and I will simply say that the alternate ending, which you can find easily, is significantly more satisfying than the theatrical cut. But the first two-thirds of I Am Legend are as gripping and atmospheric as post-apocalyptic filmmaking gets. Will Smith gave everything he had to this role. It shows in every frame. In 16th place, Wall-E, 2008. Number 16 is the entry on this list most likely to make a grown adult cry quietly in a movie theater. And I say that entirely from personal experience and with zero embarrassment. Andrew Stanton's Wall-E, produced by Pixar, is set 700 years in a future where Earth has been abandoned, buried under mountains of compacted garbage, rendered completely uninhabitable by human excess and corporate neglect. A small waste-collecting robot named Wall-E has been left behind to clean up, and he has spent centuries utterly alone, stacking trash, collecting curious trinkets, and falling deeply in love with old Hollywood musicals. When a sleek reconnaissance robot named Eve arrives on a survey mission, Wall-E's entire existence is upended. Now, do not let the animated format fool you into underestimating this film for even 1 second. Wall-E is one of the most sophisticated, politically charged, and emotionally resonant science fiction films of the 21st century. Its first 30 minutes contain virtually no dialogue whatsoever, yet communicate more about loneliness, longing, and the beauty of small things than most films manage in 2 hours of continuous conversation. It is a love story. It is a cautionary tale about consumerism and environmental destruction. It is a meditation on what makes life worth living, and it is wrapped up in the body of a children's animated film, which makes it all the more remarkable. Wall-E is a genuine masterpiece. Full stop. 15th place. The Book of Eli, Uwasi 2010. At number 15, we have a film that combines spiritual conviction, brutal and beautifully choreographed action, and surprisingly gorgeous cinematography into something far more compelling than its modest reputation suggests. The House Brothers, The Book of Eli stars Denzel Washington as Eli, a lone wanderer crossing a devastated post-war America. 30 years after a cataclysmic conflict has scorched the sky, burned away the ozone layer, and reduced civilization to scattered lawless settlements scratching for survival in the dust. Eli carries a book, the last known copy of the Bible, and is driven by a deep, unwavering sense of purpose to deliver it westward to a place he can sense but not yet see. Denzel Washington is, as always, completely magnetic. The film's sun-bleached, heavily desaturated visual palette gives the destroyed American West an almost painting-like, otherworldly quality that cinematographer Don Burgess achieves with real elegance. Gary Oldman is wonderfully menacing as Carnegie, a self-styled warlord who understands with cold precision that controlling the written word means controlling people's minds and souls. The film builds toward a twist that has divided audiences since its release. Some find it transcendent, Some find it implausible. I find it earned. The Book of Eli is a quiet, deeply confident film that knows exactly what it wants to say, and says it with considerable style and conviction. 14th place, Interstellar, 2014. 14 on our list is Christopher Nolan's staggeringly ambitious science fiction epic, a film that begins as a post-apocalyptic survival story set on a dying Earth and then expands, almost literally, to the edges of the known universe. In Interstellar, the crops are failing. Dust storms are swallowing entire towns. Civilization is contracting, quietly and desperately. And humanity is running out of time on a planet that is running out of patience. Matthew McConaughey stars as Cooper, a former NASA pilot turned reluctant farmer who is recruited for a last-ditch mission through a wormhole near Saturn in search of a habitable world for the remnants of the human race. Nolan, working alongside theoretical physicist Kip Thorne, constructed some of the most scientifically grounded and visually stunning depictions of black holes, gravitational time dilation, and relativistic travel ever committed to film. The imagery of Gargantua, the film's towering central black hole, was so mathematically accurate that it actually contributed to real published astrophysical research. That is not something you can say about many Hollywood blockbusters. But Interstellar is not merely a science lecture dressed up with a cast. At its core, it is an emotionally raw story about a father and a daughter separated by the cruelest possible distances. Not just space and time, but the irreversible passage of life itself. Hans Zimmer's organ-driven score is overwhelming in the very best way. Few films have ever aimed this high. Even fewer have come this close to the mark. 13th place, A Quiet Place, 2018. Number 13 belongs to one of the most inventive and elegantly conceived premises in recent horror and science fiction. A film that proves the apocalypse does not always need explosions, collapsing cities, or CGI catastrophe to be completely and utterly terrifying. John Krasinski's A Quiet Place is set in a world overrun by blind, extraordinarily fast creatures that hunt with devastating efficiency by sound alone. The Abbott family, played by Krasinski himself, the extraordinary Emily Blunt, and their 2 children, have survived by constructing an almost entirely silent life on their remote rural farm. They communicate in sign language. They walk barefoot on carefully laid paths of sand. They cook soft food. They live in a permanent, exhausting, heartbreaking state of near total silence. The central conceit of A Quiet Place is so elegantly simple that it seems almost obvious in retrospect. And yet, no film had executed it quite like this before. Krasinski directs with enormous confidence and discipline, wringing almost unbearable tension from moments as small and domestic as a nail left upright on a staircase. Emily Blunt's performance, particularly in one specific and harrowing scene involving a bathtub that I absolutely will not spoil for the uninitiated, is nothing short of extraordinary. A Quiet Place reminded audiences everywhere that the very best monster movies are never really about the monsters at all. They are about what we are willing to endure for the people we love. Yas 12th place, 28 Days Later, 2002. At number 12, we have the film that fundamentally rewrote the grammar of zombie cinema, and in doing so, arguably launched the entire modern zombie revival that would go on to dominate popular culture throughout the 2000s and early 2010s. Danny Boyle's 28 Days Later follows Jim, a bicycle courier who wakes from a coma in an abandoned London hospital to find the city, and apparently the country, completely deserted. What he gradually and terrifyingly discovers is that a highly contagious rage virus, accidentally released from a primate research laboratory, has spread through the British population with catastrophic speed. Boyle made the deliberate and visionary choice to shoot the film and consumer-grade digital video, a decision that gives it a raw, grainy, handheld urgency, entirely unlike the polished horror productions of its era. It feels less like a movie and more like found footage from the end of civilization, the now iconic opening sequence of Cillian Murphy walking alone through an utterly silent London, crossing an empty Westminster Bridge, wandering through a deserted Piccadilly circus, passing abandoned newspapers and motionless cars. is one of the most arresting and genuinely haunting images in 21st century cinema. Beyond the scares, 28 Days Later is fundamentally a film about what human beings do to each other when the structures of civilization disappear. And the answer, as it turns out, is frequently more frightening than any infected. John Murphy's score is absolutely, devastatingly beautiful. 11th place, Snowpiercer, 2013. Number 11 goes to a film that takes the post-apocalyptic genre and compresses it into one of the most perfect and concentrated allegorical spaces in cinema history, a single, perpetually moving train. Bong Joon-ho's Snowpiercer, based on the French graphic novel Le Transperce, is set in 2031. A well-intentioned but catastrophically mismanaged attempt to combat climate change has instead frozen the entire planet solid. The last remnants of humanity survive aboard a massive, constantly moving train called the Snowpiercer, which circumnavigates the frozen globe exactly once per year. The train is rigidly, brutally stratified by class. The wealthy live in extraordinary comfort at the front of the train, dining on sushi and attending schools and nightclubs. The poor are crammed in squalor at the tail end, surviving on protein blocks of ambiguous origin and living under the boot of a militarized security force. Chris Evans leads a rebellion from the back of the train forward toward the engine, and each train car they fight through reveals a new, increasingly surreal and disturbing layer of the world that has been constructed aboard this moving arc. Bong Joon-ho, who would later make history by becoming the first non-English language filmmaker to win the Academy Award for Best Picture with Parasite, demonstrates here every quality that makes him one of the most singular filmmakers working today. His wit, his political sharpness, his visual invention, and his absolute gleeful refusal to let a film be just one thing. 10th place, Planet of the Apes, 1968. We have reached the top 10, and at number 10, we have a film that belongs in any serious conversation about science fiction cinema. Full stop, no argument entertained. Franklin J. Schaffner's Planet of the Apes, released in 1968, follows astronaut Taylor, played by a perfectly and almost cosmically well-cast Charlton Heston, who crash lands on a mysterious planet where apes are the dominant intelligent species, and human beings are mute, primitive animals hunted for sport and kept in cages for scientific experimentation. The film works simultaneously on multiple levels. On the surface, it is a wildly entertaining science fiction adventure with one of cinema's all-time great final twists. A finale so iconic and so perfectly constructed that it has embedded itself permanently into the cultural consciousness, even for generations of people who have never seen the film itself. But beneath that surface, Planet of the Apes is a sharp, biting, genuinely angry satire of human arrogance, scientific hubris, religious fundamentalism, and racial hierarchy. Released during the height of the Cold War and at the peak of the American Civil Rights Movement, its political subtext was impossible to miss and entirely deliberate. Rod Serling co-wrote the screenplay, and his influence, that Twilight Zone quality of escalating dread leading to a moment of moral revelation, is felt in every single scene. Groundbreaking, thought-provoking, endlessly rewatchable, and still enormously entertaining after nearly 60 years. Some films earn their legendary status. This one never had to try. 9th place, 12 Monkeys, 1995. At number 9, we have Terry Gilliam's gloriously strange, time-bending, philosophically disorienting masterpiece. A film that rewards patience, repeat viewings, and a genuine and reasonably high tolerance for organized cinematic chaos. 12 Monkeys is set in a grim future where a devastating virus has killed approximately 5 billion people and forced the surviving remnants of humanity to live underground in cramped, bureaucratic, barely functioning subterranean cities. Bruce Willis plays James Cole, a prisoner selected for a dangerous experimental program. He will be sent back in time, repeatedly to gather intelligence about the virus before it was released into the population, not to prevent it, just to understand it. The film's circular, deeply fatalistic plot. Logic is its greatest and most unsettling achievement. Gilliam, working from a brilliant screenplay by David and Janet Peoples, builds a story where every detail, Every image, every line of dialogue, every apparently throwaway moment eventually clicks into place with a precision that is genuinely disturbing. Brad Pitt received an Academy Award nomination for his wildly kinetic, electric performance as Jeffrey Goins, a manic and conspiratorial mental patient who crackles off the screen in every scene he inhabits. And Bruce Willis gives one of his most genuinely vulnerable and underappreciated performances. A man slowly unraveling across timelines, unable to determine what is real and what is memory and what is madness. That ending will stay with you for days, possibly longer. 8th place, Dawn of the Dead, 1978. Number 8 belongs to the undisputed king of zombie cinema, George A. Romero, and his most sprawling, most ambitious, most thematically loaded, and most darkly funny entry in his legendary Dead series. Dawn of the Dead, released in 1978, follows 4 survivors of a spreading zombie apocalypse who take refuge inside a large suburban shopping mall, seal themselves in, eliminate the undead within, and attempt to build something resembling a normal life surrounded by the consumer goods of a civilization that no longer exists. The satire here is so blunt it is almost comedic, and that is entirely and deliberately the point. Romero uses the central image of zombies mindlessly shuffling through a shopping mall, drawn back by habit and muscle memory to the stores they frequented in life, as one of the most acidic and hilarious critiques of consumerism and American materialism ever committed to film. You do not need a film studies degree to catch what Romero is doing. He is not subtle about it. He never was, and that was always his greatest strength. But Dawn of the Dead is also genuinely frightening, genuinely exciting, and, beneath its considerable splatter and practical gore, surprisingly moving. Tom Savini's makeup effects remain impressive even across decades. Romero was always more interested in the living than he was in the dead, and that is precisely what made him great. 7th place, The Day After Tomorrow, 2004. At number 7, we have the most purely entertaining and unapologetically spectacular entry on this entire list. A disaster-adjacent, post-apocalyptic blockbuster that understands exactly what kind of film it is and commits to that identity with joyful, unashamed, and frankly infectious enthusiasm. Lopbo Roland Emmerich's The Day After Tomorrow follows paleoclimatologist Jack Hall, played by Dennis Quaid, with a particular brand of square-jawed determination that the genre demands, as a series of catastrophic superstorms triggered by rapid climate change begin to plunge the entire northern hemisphere into a sudden and violent new ice age. His son Sam, played by a young Jake Gyllenhaal, is trapped in a rapidly freezing New York City with a small group of survivors sheltering in the New York Public Library, burning books to stay alive. Now, and I want to be completely transparent about this, The Day After Tomorrow is not a scientifically accurate film, not even a little. The actual climatologists in the audience are already writing their strongly worded comments, and that is completely fair. The meteorology in this film would make a first-year atmospheric science student weep, but as a pure spectacle, as a sheer thundering exercise in large-scale disaster filmmaking, it is tremendously, irresistibly effective. Watching the Statue of Liberty disappear beneath a tidal surge, or a wall of supercooled air flash freezing New York City in real time, is genuinely thrilling cinema. Emmerich has always been the architect of beautiful, lovingly crafted destruction, and The Day After Tomorrow is his most focused and emotionally engaging work. 6th place, Terminator 2, Judgment Day, 1991. Number 6 is a film that barely requires an introduction, and yet deserves every word of one, because its impact on cinema, visual effects, and action filmmaking cannot be overstated. James Cameron's Terminator 2. Judgment Day, released in 1991, is simultaneously one of the greatest action films ever made, one of the most technically revolutionary films ever made, and one of the finest post-apocalyptic films ever made, all in the same 2 hours and 17 minutes. The premise expands on the original with brilliant simplicity. Judgment Day is still coming, and a reprogrammed Fate 100. Arnold Schwarzenegger, cast perfectly against type as a protector rather than a killer, is sent back to defend teenage John Connor from the terrifying T-1000, a liquid metal shapeshifter played by Robert Patrick, with a stillness that is genuinely unsettling. The CGI effects bringing the T-1000 to life were so far ahead of anything attempted before that they effectively launched the modern era of digital filmmaking. But what elevates Terminator 2 above pure technical spectacle is Cameron's investment in his characters. Linda Hamilton's Sarah Connor, transformed from frightened waitress to hardened warrior, is one of cinema's great action heroes. The film's central argument, that a machine can learn the value of human life, lands with real emotional force. This is not just a sequel, it is a cinematic evolution that sit with you for a moment. Fourth place, The Matrix, 1999. At number 4, we have a film that changed cinema, changed philosophy, changed fashion, and launched roughly 1 million undergraduate essays about the nature of reality, all in a single release. The Wachowskis' The Matrix, released in 1999, is a post-apocalyptic film in its deepest sense. The world as human beings know it has already ended. The actual year in the film's universe is closer to 2199. Machines rose. Humanity was defeated, the sky was scorched, and an artificial intelligence constructed a perfect simulation of 1999 as a vast, pacifying prison while human bodies are harvested for energy. Keanu Reeves plays Thomas Anderson, known as Neo, a computer programmer extracted from the simulation and confronted with the catastrophic truth of the real world. The Matrix synthesizes Hong Kong martial arts cinema, cyberpunk literature, Baudrillard's philosophy of simulation, and biblical allegory into something that works equally as a pure action spectacle and a genuinely challenging intellectual experience. The bullet time sequences were revolutionary in 1999. They only feel familiar now because every action film since has borrowed from them shamelessly. Lawrence Fishburne, Carrie-Anne Moss, and Hugo Weaving all deliver iconic performances. The Matrix is the rare blockbuster that asks real questions and has the craft to make you care deeply about the answers. Third place, The Road Warrior, 1982. The bronze medal on our countdown goes to the film that essentially created, defined, and handed down the complete visual and narrative vocabulary of the post-apocalyptic genre as we understand it today. Without this film, half the entries on this list would look entirely different, or might not exist at all. George Miller's Mad Max 2, The Road Warrior, released in 1982, follows Max Rokitansky, Mel Gibson, lean and weathered and reduced to something barely above animal survival, as he roams the devastated Australian outback in the aftermath of civilizational collapse. Gasoline is the most precious resource on the planet. Violence is the only remaining currency, and Max is a man who has lost everything: his family, his purpose, his belief in any future worth surviving for. When he stumbles upon a small, desperate community of survivors protecting a functioning oil refinery against a ravaging horde of outlaw warriors led by the terrifying Lord Humongous, Max is slowly and reluctantly drawn into a conflict far larger than himself. What Miller accomplishes with a relatively modest budget is genuinely astonishing even now, 4 decades later. The vehicle chase sequences in The Road Warrior were executed practically. Real stunt performers, real crashes, real speed on real roads, and they remain among the most viscerally immediate and thrillingly dangerous action sequences in the entire history of cinema. The film's production design, its mohawked, leather-clad villains, its improvised and weaponized vehicles, its wasteland aesthetic of scavenged metal and torn rubber, became the definitive template for every post-apocalyptic film that followed. You can draw a straight, unbroken line from The Road Warrior to Fury Road, and from Fury Road to nearly every dystopian film of the past 4 decades. Miller built an entire genre out in the desert, and it has never really left. Second place, Blade Runner, 1982. The silver medal belongs to a film that was misunderstood and commercially disappointing at the time of its release, that was tinkered with and re-released in multiple cuts over decades, that was debated and reappraised and argued over by critics and audiences for years, and that has ultimately and definitively emerged as one of the most visionary, most beautiful, and most important films ever made. Ridley Scott's Blade Runner, released in 1982, the same extraordinary year as The Road Warrior, remarkably, is set in a polluted, rain-soaked, impossibly neon-drenched Los Angeles in 2019. The world has not ended with a bang, but with a slow, suffocating accumulation of decay. The environment is ruined. The city is overcrowded beyond function. The wealthy have abandoned Earth entirely for off-world colonies, leaving the streets to the stranded, the destitute, and the bioengineered replicants, artificial human beings who are slowly, terrifyingly, becoming indistinguishable from the people who designed and built them. Harrison Ford plays Rick Deckard, a burned-out detective called back into service to track down and retire a group of rogue replicants led by the unforgettable Roy Batty, played by Rutger Hauer with a ferocious, tragic, barely contained intensity. The film's central philosophical questions, what is consciousness, what is memory, what truly separates a manufactured existence from an authentic one, are posed with a breathtaking visual elegance that Scott and cinematographer Jordan Cronenweth never let become merely decorative. Vangelis' synthesizer score remains hauntingly, indelibly beautiful across more than 40 years. And Rutger Hauer's final monologue, largely improvised on set on the night before filming, is possibly the most unexpectedly moving and quietly devastating scene in all of science fiction cinema. It is known as the Tears in Rain speech. If you have never seen it, I genuinely envy you the experience of encountering it for the very first time. Blade Runner is not just great cinema. It is essential cinema. It earned every bit of it. And there you have it, the 20 greatest post-apocalyptic films of all time. If you enjoyed this countdown, hit that like buttons and subscribe to Top Movies for more every week. Drop your favorite in the comments below. I read every single one. I am Max. See you in the next one.